Well, welcome, folks, to this edition of the 700 Club as we start another week of programming. Hey, let me ask you, can you imagine the FBI being used for political purposes? Well, they say it was under Johnson. They say it was under Kennedy. They say it was all up and down the line. But is it true that they may be putting spies into people's campaigns, that they implant people to ask embarrassing questions of people who are on the campaign staff? Well, the Justice Department is investigating the role of the so-called FBI informant in President Trump's 2016 election campaign. The president demanded that the Department of Justice take action after media reports that the informant contacted several members of his campaign. And Rudy Giuliani has said, if that's the case, this Mueller investigation is over.
And the president believes the FBI did more than monitor his staff for possible Russian influence. He wants to know if the Obama administration used the Bureau to spy on him and his campaign. Gary Lane has the story.
President Trump tweeted up a storm over the weekend, saying that, quote, "I hereby demand that the Department of Justice look into whether or not the FBI DOJ infiltrated or surveyed the Trump campaign for political purposes, and if any such demands or requests were made by people within the Obama administration." The president's tweets were in response to articles appearing in the Washington Post and New York Times, reporting that the FBI used an informant, a retired American professor living in the United Kingdom, to pass on information he learned while advising the campaign. Hours later, the Justice Department announced it asked its Inspector General to look into the matter. Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein said if anyone did infiltrate the Trump campaign, the Department of Justice would need to know about it and then take action. Adam Schiff, ranking minority member of the House Intelligence Committee, doesn't believe the FBI had a spy in the Trump campaign.
This claim by the president, the suggestion by Giuliani that there is a political spy embedded in the Trump campaign is nonsense. And you hear it in the same terms that Trump often speaks, which is people are saying, or I'm hearing, or we're being told. That's another way of saying this is patently untrue, but we would like to spread it anyway.
President Trump has criticized the FBI and Department of Justice for months. He made these comments last April.
You look at the corruption at the top of the FBI, it's a disgrace. And our Justice Department, which I try and stay away from, but at some point I won't.
On Fox News Sunday, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham expressed concerns about fake and unverified information used by the DOJ as evidence to obtain foreign intelligence surveillance warrants.
I want to make sure that the FBI and the Department of Justice did not try to in their own way change the outcome of the election. Did they use techniques and tactics approved by the court, or did they just make this up themselves?
And as President Trump asks for an investigation, one of his lawyers, Rudy Giuliani, now says special counsel Robert Mueller told him he may wrap up the Russia collusion investigation, at least the president's part of it, by September 1st. All that may depend on the president and if he'll agree to a possible interview with Mueller. Gary Lane, CBN News.
You know, this whole thing had to do when the Attorney General, who was a good friend of the president's during the run-up to the election, he shouldn't have been Attorney General. He had some meeting at a casual affair, some cocktail party or reception at an embassy, and he met with, there was some Russian there. But he said, on the strength of that, I'm going to recuse myself from all this. And so suddenly you have a deputy, Rod Rosenstein, running everything, and he in turn comes around and appoints a special counsel, which nobody who was any knowledgeable of this thing would have ever approved of. And so they've got this witch hunt going on, and it's all at the feet of the man who was designated as the Attorney General. And, you know, God bless him, he should resign, and Rosenstein should be fired, and they ought to clean the whole thing out, but it's politically impossible now. It's really very hard, but that's what ought to be done. And Jeff Sessions is a wonderful man. If he'd stayed in the Senate, they wouldn't have lost his Senate seat. But they did. The Alabama Senate seat flipped to a Democrat because of the scandals associated with the man who was the nominee. I mean, it's a mess. But if he'd only stayed there and, not tried to be so, quote, noble, it was just ridiculous to recuse yourself from everything because of one casual meeting at one reception in one embassy. I mean, that was ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous. And, of course, more ridiculous, Giuliani was really the top candidate for Attorney General, but he wanted to be Secretary of State, so he didn't get either one of them. Now he's one of the council. Well, in other news, President Trump will meet with South Korea's President Moon to discuss how to get the summit with North Korea back on track. Ephraim Graham has that story.
Pat, South Korea's president is on his way to Washington to meet with President Trump Tuesday. The two will discuss how to go forward after North Korea's threat to pull out over demands that it get rid of its nuclear weapons. President Trump reportedly is questioning aides if it's wise to proceed with the summit. The administration will be watching closely to see if the North keeps its promise to close a nuclear test site this week. Closing that facility is considered a display of goodwill by the North. Pat?
I want to reiterate what I've said before. It is an extraordinary public relations coup for the leader of a tiny little country to have a sit-down meeting with the head of the most powerful nation on the face of the earth. For Trump to go all the way to Singapore to meet with him is unbelievably prestigious. And it elevates him to a great level. And for the idea that he would, of course, pull out of that meeting is absurd. But he blusters and so forth. I don't think we need to worry about it. And I think Trump should call their bluff. He's good at calling bluffs, and this is a bluff. And if they get away with it, if the United States has already caved, by the way, we conceded already, okay, we won't have the joint military exercises with South Korea, which we planned and was on the calendar all along, and Kim Jong-un knew about it. But nevertheless, we canceled it because he threatened. He said, well, that's provocative, and therefore I'm not going to the summit. Trump is tough. He's got to hang tough on this one. Ephraim?
Pat, China and the U.S. are calling a halt to the trade war that's been brewing between the new nations. Secretary of State Steve Mnuchin made this announcement on Fox News Sunday.
We're putting the trade war on hold. So right now we have agreed to put the tariffs on hold while we try to execute the framework. The president has been very clear since the first meeting with President Xi in Mar-a-Lago that we are going to reduce the trade deficit. We have an agreement with China that they will substantially agree to it.
While China did not agree to buy a specific amount of American goods to close the trade deficit, the two parties did agree to a number of commitments to close that deficit over time. Venezuela's socialist leader, Nicolas Maduro, won the presidential election by a wide margin Sunday, but his opponents are calling for a new vote. Maduro's leading challenger says the election was rigged. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo referred to it as a, quote, sham election. The socialist government of Venezuela has crippled the country's economy, bringing widespread food shortages and crushing inflation. Pat?
I said some time ago that the president of Venezuela needed to go, and we should have brought some kind of action against him. But nevertheless, he stayed in power. Then he died of natural causes, and this Maduro is a thug. He's a former, what is he, a bus driver or something? I think that was his skill set. They've ruined the economy of Venezuela. Venezuela has one of the most bountiful sources of petroleum in the entire world. And they have driven the companies out. They have not maintained the wells. Their production of crude oil is down substantially, and the people are suffering. They're starving. They're leaving the country in droves. And it's time. There's an organization of American states, and it looks like to me they should have come in on Venezuela and taking that government out. There needs to be so-called regime change. But we let them get away with it, and this Maduro, this is a sham election that should not be allowed to stand. But I know that our government has got its hands full with Korea and Iran and all those other things. But Venezuela is sitting there at our doorstep, and they were a buddy of Cuba, but the Cuba's, you know, economy's in tatters as well, and they're not propping up Venezuela, and Venezuela can't prop up Cuba, so the two of them are not really doing much for each other. But I think something's got to be done to take Maduro out, and it should have been done some time ago, Ephraim.
Pat, President Trump's decision to put National Guard troops on the southern border drew criticism from many. But Texas Governor Greg Abbott calls it the right move. In a wide-ranging interview with CBN News, our Jenna Browder talked to him about issues facing Texas, as well as how his faith is central to how he leads the Lone Star State.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott makes a stop at the Texas-Mexico border.
He's a man of the headlines.
Governor, thank you very much for taking the time.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott in the spotlight regularly.
You are sending more National Guard troops down to the Texas border. It was 250, and now that number is at 1,000. Why?
We want to ensure both the rule of law and safety. Here's what we've seen over the past year, and that is from March in 2017 to March in 2018. The number of people coming across the border has increased more than 200%. The amount of heroin coming across the border has increased more than 200%. What everyone needs to realize is no one just happens to come across the border illegally. They get there because of activities by drug cartels and coyotes and human smugglers.
Abbott and the people in his state also made news this past fall when Hurricane Harvey unleashed its relentless fury. Utter devastation spread across hundreds of miles. But through it all, Abbott says faith prevailed.
The aftermath of it was the horrific flooding that took place in Houston. And there you saw literally the hand of God acting to benefit everyone who was there.
He says the same proved true when a gunman opened fire in the Sutherland Springs church, killing 26 people.
And I've never seen faith surface and reveal itself so much as in the aftermath of that horrific shooting, because these people who experienced the worst of the worst, they lean on the thing that matters the most, and that is God. And it's their faith in God that led them through the pathway of the stormy seas, that led them to the road to recovery. And had it not been for God, they would still be stuck in a quagmire.
Had it not been for God, he says he too would still be stuck.
How do you explain these tragedies to people who wonder, where is God in the midst of all of this, having been through adversity yourself?
Well, I explain it through the lens of my life.
At age 26, Abbott's life changed when he was out for a routine jog. It was after a storm that a tree crashed down on him, crushing his spine, leaving him paralyzed for life.
You do ask, God, why did this happen? But what I found helped me overcome that was when I calmed down and listened to God, and I was forced then more than ever to lean on God and to follow God, and it was that pathway that led me out.
The governor wishes no one ever had to face such terrible tragedies or experience what he did. But if they do,
all I could hope for anybody is for them not to have to go through that tragedy, but to come to the same outcome, and that is to let God lead their lives.
Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Governor Abbott, great man of faith. Pat?
Well, extraordinary man. And isn't it amazing that Texas would look at somebody who's in a wheelchair and elect him governor? I think that's a tremendous thing. But that man is a tower of faith. I mean, it's just a great interview. Thank you.
There's just such a strength that comes from him, and that really only can come from God.
That's right.
And Texas has been blessed with some good governors, over the years. And
well, it's a place where the Baptist Church has been so strong, and it has permeated the society. They really have a core of faith in God throughout that society. For example, you know, they just ran the Preakness, and this horse Justified just won the Preakness. So he won the Kentucky Derby, he won the Preakness, and now he's going for a possible Triple Crown. Well, the man who owns him is a software guy who had made a lot of money, but he loves the Lord. He and his wife love the Lord, and so they gave tremendous testimony. The jockey who rode the horse loves the Lord. But these are two Texans who've got this horse in the Derby. But, I mean, it's that kind of thing that you find over and over again. And you say, what's the most important thing about Texas? I think the most important thing is an underlying faith in the Lord that reflects itself in huge churches and a tremendous evangelical spirit throughout that state. So my hat's off to Texas. God bless you.
God bless Texas. May they always stay a part of the Union.
Well, they're not going anywhere.
Up next, where's the safest country on earth to have a baby? Many say Ireland, but maybe not for long.
Saying to Irish women, you're not safe without abortion. Your health isn't safe. Your lives might be in danger. Women need abortion.
The battle to bring down Ireland's pro-life amendment. After this.
I was teaching Zumba and my skin was itching and I thought it was a rash. I found out I had advanced stage breast cancer. I'm gonna have to quit teaching my Zumba class. I'm gonna have to quit everything. I wanted to fight. I'm determined. Cancer Treatment Centers of America, they'll take care of me. The spiritual support was there. I had all of these people praying for me.
CTCA is about innovation. It's at the heart of everything we do, and our model is different. We believe in an integrative approach.
My naturopath and my nutritionist balance my diet, balance my supplements to help with the side effects during or after chemo.
If you or someone you love is fighting cancer, go to cancercenter.com/faith.
As a family, we have realized just how precious life is. I have just made the best decision I've ever made.
Call or go to cancercenter.com/faith. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Care that never quits. Appointments available now.
The former star running back of the New York Giants and the grand champion on Dancing with the Stars. Rashad Jennings tells us about his unlikely career and the most surprising part of his story. Then, the mother of all headaches.
The pain was worse than anything I had ever felt before.
Leads to a trip to the ER.
There's a tumor on your brain.
Here's how she killed the tumor before it killed her. Tomorrow on the 700 Club.
Abortion. You know, we've killed over 50 million people in America, and all those lives, what could they have created? What could have those unborn children done to bless this society? Some could have been lawyers, some could have been doctors, some could have been scientists, some could have been statesmen. Who knows what they could have done? Some could have been mothers of wonderful children, but they're not there anymore because their lives have been snuffed out. Well, the little nation of Ireland has been called one of the safest nations to have a baby because of its pro-life amendment, protecting the lives of both mother and unborn child. But that law could be swept away in a referendum this week. Dale Hurd reports from Dublin.
Irish voters will decide this week whether to repeal the 8th Amendment to their constitution, which protects the right of both a mother and her unborn child. If it's repealed, as polling suggests it will be, some fear it could open the way to abortion on demand. The Irish passed the 8th Amendment because they didn't want Ireland to experience what had happened in the United States with Roe v. Wade, when a court decided that abortion on demand should be legal. But Ireland has been undergoing sweeping social change. In 2015, Ireland became the first country to legalize gay marriage by popular vote. Its Taoiseach, or Prime Minister, is openly gay. And Leo Varadkar backs repeal of the 8th Amendment along with much of the Irish establishment and media.
In Ireland today,
if the woman sitting next to you is pregnant,
she does not have full rights over her own body.
Tonight, everything you need to know ahead of next week's referendum on the 8th Amendment.
But repeal's lead has been shrinking. And Facebook and Google have sealed off the nation to any foreign advertising about the referendum, in what looks to pro-lifers as a way to make sure the repeal or yes camp wins.
It's very significant that yes campaigners rushed out today to welcome this censorship of the no message. Was it because the polls are tightening? Was it because it looks like this referendum, which is absolutely supported by the media establishment and the political establishment, is going to be rejected by the people?
Irish pro-life leader Niamh Uvreem describes an uphill battle against most of the nation's press and politicians.
The bias is off the charts. The role of the media in this has been to wholeheartedly campaign for abortion. Saying to Irish women, you're not safe without abortion, your health isn't safe, your lives might be in danger. Women need abortion in order to have full and safe lives and in order to be equal in society. And when you look at the facts, of course, this is entirely untrue.
As a doctor, I would say abortion is not predominantly a medical issue.
Dr. John Kehoe is a general practitioner. While many doctors have said they support repeal of the 8th Amendment for the safety and health of women, Kehoe says women don't need a change in the law to be safer.
This is not a medical debate, in my opinion, first and foremost. This is a social debate, and this is a debate about choice, and this is a debate, from my point of view, this is a debate about human rights, the right to life.
The repeal side says it's absolutely about the health and safety of women. But whether an abortion is ever necessary to save a woman's life is in dispute, because if there is a serious complication, a doctor can attempt to deliver the baby early alive. Another issue is the Irish women who are already traveling to Britain for an abortion, or are taking the abortion pill illegally.
I think the laws that we have in Ireland are far too restrictive. 9-10 women every day travel to the United Kingdom to end their pregnancies, and increasingly women are buying pills over the internet and taking them at home. So that is actually quite a dangerous situation.
Let's look at the facts, and the facts show us this, that women are safe in Ireland. They're much safer here than they are in the United States, where abortion is widely available. So women are safe without abortion. Any care they need during pregnancy, any interventions they need during pregnancy are given to them under Irish law.
The other issue is abortion for instances of fetal abnormalities. The Yes Camp says women suffer psychologically when they're forced to carry a child to term that is going to die.
There was no way I could continue for another 28 weeks, potentially, knowing that there was no baby. There was a baby at the end of it was going to survive.
Women in cases like these who want an abortion must fly to Britain.
And I'd like to welcome up Vicky Wall to the stage.
When Vicky Wall learned the girl she was carrying suffered from trisomy 18 and would die in her womb, she was told by a medical expert her only option was to travel to Britain to have an abortion. She made another choice.
What message would I have sent to my other children? That their little sister was sick. So I was just going to end things quicker.
Vicky decided to take time off work to love and enjoy her daughter Liaden in the last days before her death.
We spent the summer hanging out with her, going to the beach with her, loving her, taking pictures, talking to her constantly, reading her Dr. Seuss stories. And she reacted to our voices. And we loved our time with her, and we valued our time with her. And I got a very bad pain, and Liaden never kicked again. That sounds very tragic and sad, and it is. But Liaden died at home, surrounded by love, and her brother and her sister and her dad and my friend, and it was very dignified for her. We went on then to deliver Liaden, and when she came out, she looked just perfect. She didn't look like she was sick at all. We got to bring her home in her little Moses basket. We drove her home, and everybody came to see her, all her family. If I had aborted Liaden, I couldn't be sitting here talking about her now. I would have ended her life, and she would have become a secret not to be talked about. The healing I have from telling her story and knowing that I gave her every chance to live her short life, that's what healed our broken heart.
Vicky Wall believes she received better prenatal care because abortion was not a legal option. But now the right to life in Ireland is in serious jeopardy. And if the 8th Amendment is repealed, Ireland will certainly never be the same. Dale Hurd, CBN News, Dublin.
Amazing story, and we'll see what the Irish decide to do.